Get started. Happy New Year. Welcome back. Vice Chairman Dixon, will you open us up in a word of prayer, please? Are you on 6?
Yes. Everyone, please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I pray for wisdom and judgment over this body as we go through these matters before us today. Lord, I pray for our first responders and our men and women serving here at home and overseas. I pray that you put a hedge of protection around them and bring them home safely. And dear, in Jesus' name, amen.
And thank you, Chairman Dixon. Before we get started, I do want to flag for everyone February 12th. If you have not received notification of our committee dinner, it is tentatively but pretty firmly scheduled for the 12th at Bones. So please mark your calendars for that. And we are waiting on Janine Miller to get here to walk us through the freight logistics report. And there she is. Ladies and gentlemen, perfect timing. Let's welcome to the front of the room with a rousing round of applause, if you will, Miss Janine Miller. Are you out of breath from those stairs? Because they are, you would not be alone if you were out of breath from the stairs.
Yes, and the cold.
I'm going to recognize, oh, no? Senator Mallow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that the senator from the 23rd heard that the dinner is going to be on February 12th. Last time I missed the dinner because we had an ethics committee meeting that was a few hours long. So, I'd hope, we would work that out.
Fair enough. Who do we have here? Senator McLaurin.
And right, while Ms. Miller is getting ready, I just want to make an observation, too, that we have no greater confidence that nobody watches these meetings than the public invitation to where and when our dinner is. So thank you very much, Mr.
Fair
Chairman.
enough. Fair enough. Can you, while we're waiting for her to present, you have a few stickers on. Are you part of the sticker caucus today? What are you wearing over there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I try to represent causes that are as germane as possible to the committee's business. But since you've given me a chance to do some shout-outs, there was the Georgia Speech Language Hearing Association in attendance today. I think the rules chairman said something about them. And reproductive freedom for all is the other cause. So go team.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. Ms. Miller, must we listen to more of his diatribes, or are you, by chance, ready to?
Thankfully, I
Take
have a
this
very
over.
boring topic, freight infrastructure. Thank you for having me at the committee today. And this is a topic that is important for all of transportation, the trucks that move along our roadways and the cargo that's moved by rail and ship. But I'm gonna focus today on our roads, trucks on our roadways, and it's not just important for transportation, but it's important for economic development, the community impacts for quality of life, and on and on. So I wanted to give an update on our recent analysis and studies that we've done here in the state of Georgia, and these are the main ones. There's freight and truck related data that we look at in all of the studies and plans that we do at GDOT, but I'm going to give you kind of an overview on the highest level, biggest picture analysis that we've been doing. So for the first time ever, we did an evaluation of the reliance of Georgia's key industries on our transportation networks based on private sector data. So we procured about 24, either acquired because it's public data or procured because it's private data, 24 sources of information, data flows about cargo, trucks, you name it, and the type of industries that are impacted, that are using our roadways throughout the state. Never done this before, and this is the same data that private companies themselves both populate and use for their operational and strategic investment decisions. So we are working from the same batch of data that private sector uses, and this was one of the most interesting outputs. Usually when you see a map of Georgia's roadways, you see the map on the right and you see it in all one color, say black or gray or blue. But here for the first time, we are able to dissect which industries use which parts of our network the most. Food and agriculture and manufacturing are the most distributed in terms of the state routes that are used. But of course, agriculture is food and agriculture are using the southern half of our state more prolifically than other industries. And the eastern part and northern part of our state is what manufacturing industries rely upon. Distribution and retail is predominantly in Metro Atlanta because that is the population center of the state of Georgia. So as you layer them all together, you can see that every part of our road network is used for our key industries. And these industries represent 60% or more of the cargo that's moving on Georgia's state routes. By 2050, we took this data and we put it into our model. So by 2050, the freight moving on our road network is going to grow significantly, nearly doubling in weight to 900 million tons and more than doubling in value to $1.6 trillion moving on our roads in the next 25 years. And you can see that in the gray on the left, most of it by truck, of course. Although rail in Georgia is very, very important. We have more rail miles than any other state in the southeast, more freight rail miles. And we have both Class 1 railroads at our ocean port in Savannah, which is a unique advantage for shippers, both because they can reach more locations in Georgia communities and throughout the southeast into and out of the port, but also it enables competition between the two carriers for those shippers that are able to use either Class 1, CSX, or Norfolk Southern. But in either case, cargo is nearly going to double in weight. That translates into congestion costs. If we do nothing, if we expand our network in no significant ways, our delay is going to more than double. And you can see broken down by the color of the bar there. In the base there is manufacturing. Congestion cost to manufacturing shippers, cargo owners, is going to double. Congestion cost for distribution, that's the lighter blue, is going to nearly quadruple. And then congestion costs for food and agriculture will nearly double. And other industries also have impacts, but this is the main part of our congestion costs and things that we are using as a decision maker as GDOT looks at our project options in front of us that are in our pipeline right now and what we need to develop going forward. So I'm going to reflect back to this. Every one of those roadway networks is going to be experiencing this congestion cost doubling. Okay. Part of our infrastructure is when trucks are not just moving, but when they are parked or need to park. This commend the Senate for the study committee that was done over the past year. Excellent work, and the attention to this issue is critical for our economy, but it's also critical for the whole eastern seaboard and southeast. Georgia is not the only place that is having a truck parking challenge. It's caused by federal law and regulation that require truck drivers to pull over and rest for 30 minutes or to get breaks in between their service hours. When the electronic logging device came into play, there was no longer the ability for them to drive an extra mile or two, so they have to pull over wherever they can get a parking space. I don't know how many of you might have seen trucks parked along the interstate ramps, the exit ramps, overnight is typically when you'll see it, early in the morning or late at night. We have more truck demand than we have parking spaces in our state. It's important to note, though, that of the truck parking that we have in the state of Georgia, 6% is public spaces. 6% of truck parking places are at our rest areas, way stations, or visitor center. 94% of truck parking is at private truck stops. Think of ATL, Travel Centers of America, Love's, and others, where there are amenities available beyond what we're able to provide at our rest areas. The problem becomes, though, that when they cannot find a place to park, the driver is going to spend nearly an hour looking for a truck parking space, or they have to cut off their hours of service early so that they can park somewhere that they know is safe. that is an impact of 10% to the supply chain, and 12% equates to a 12% cut to truck driver pay. These are frontline workers that are moving our 70 to 80% of our economy, and so we want to do what we can at GDOT to understand where truck parking opportunities to expand truck parking exist. We did a study about 2 years ago that is helping us locate where we can expand truck parking that might be useful for drivers who are needing to rest. Of course, Atlanta is the epicenter of where unauthorized parking is occurring, and that's what this map shows in the brighter yellow and red. But we do have unauthorized truck parking that is on our interstate ramps and side of the roadways in other parts of the state as well, as you can see there, wherever it's lit up in purple or blue. So we are considering what capital investments we can make, either directly at our rest areas or potentially through partnerships with, again, those private truck stop operators. And we need to ensure we have compliance with federal and state laws and funding availability and eligibility. But this is a focus for the department to do our part to catalyze truck parking availability and expand that in our state. One other thing that we've done is taken a look at the coastal empire. That is the 4 counties that are around the Port of Savannah, that being Bryan, Bullock, Chatham, and Effingham County, where 75% of trips to and from the Port of Savannah are heading with their cargo that's imported. We do know that there's going to be expanded capacity at the Port of Savannah. Some of you may have seen that. But we saw a 20% uptick in TEU, that's 20-foot equivalent units of container capacity, increased by 20% during the pandemic. So Savannah is a port of choice for shippers and for carriers alike, and we're doing our best to keep up with that demand that's occurring outside the port area. So we took a look at the coastal empire, analyzing regional freight patterns, excuse me, industrial development patterns and effects of the port growth on that local area. And this is what we found, that congestion growth in Metro Savannah from 2020 to 30 years out by quote, level of service. That is the metric that we use, data point that we use to indicate the level of congestion. So on the left is essentially, if you drive down in the Savannah area today, you will see and you'll experience traffic congestion where those red dots are on the left map, 2020. Those are levels of service F, as you can almost think about it as a grade that kids school children have in their classwork. So there's some congestion occurring today, but by 2050, if without significant investment, you can see where level of service F or traffic congestion expands throughout this study area, throughout this catchment area for the Savannah cargo that is moving through our port. That is equating to a great deal of delay and making those land areas less available to truckers within a 1-hour drive of the port. In fact, without targeted investment by 2050, roughly 40% of the available industrial space will be an hour drive from the port, where right now it's about 10 to 20 minutes. So the darker the shade of blue on the right means those are in the hour to 2 hour distance from the port, where none of that is being experienced today. So that delay that's happening as a result of that congestion is making land development less accessible for those shippers that are needing to move cargo quickly. One thing to also note about this distance away from the port that collapses with congestion is it impacts our truckers, our dray truckers in the area. Today they can make multiple turns, as they call it, into and out of the port, because their destination of an industrial facility, whether it's manufacturing or distribution, is close. So they make, it depends on the trucker, it depends on what shift they're in, but they can make anywhere from 4 to 8 turns a day. that is going to be cut in half. So this is another impact to truck drivers. We will need more truck drivers to do these turns in future years unless we're able to invest in capacity improvements in the area. So those capacity improvements we studied include corridor expansions, about a dozen of them, as you can see here. This includes I-16, but it also includes 80 and 21 into Effingham, as well as some improvements on I-95 and around the new Meta site there in Bryan County, plus about a dozen intersection improvements. And these intersection improvements are much more economical, and they help out the flow a lot. Even today, if we were able to build all of these improvements today, you'd see improvements in flow much more quickly than if you do corridor improvements, because intersections are less expensive, therefore we have more money available to do more of them, and they're also quicker to construct because they require less right-of-way and less permitting. Okay. We also did a study of Troup County. The reason we did this is, well, there's, some of you may have heard of MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, that are throughout Georgia. There's 16 MPOs. Those are federally designated areas that the local governments come together and do specific transportation planning. About a handful of them have their own money to improve their roadway networks. But Troup County is not one of those metro areas. It just does not meet the population threshold to get federal planning money or federal funds for road improvements in that area. Of course, Troup County is the home of Kia, our currently only operating auto manufacturer in the state of Georgia. The growth that has happened there is exponential. And the last time that a plan was done in Troup County was 2006, and that was the year that Kia announced it would open. So that, as you all know, the community there has transformed, has grown significantly, and we wanted to partner with the county there to do that study where federal resources weren't available. So this is on the Alabama line. It's just north of Columbus. In fact, right after you might be heading down to Columbus and split off on I-85, that you're I-185. Sorry, you're in Troup County at that point. And then you pass by LaGrange, and on your way to Alabama is where you come to West Point, which is where the Kia plant is. There's 3 cities in Troup County: LaGrange, Hogansville, and again West Point is where the Kia plant is, but there are suppliers throughout this area. We wanted to identify transportation network improvements to address the future growth and with a focus on freight, and provide recommendations for road and bridge infrastructure and touch on transit and multimodal projects as well. That study is underway, and we'll be having, we've been having meetings with the local communities and local governments there over the past 9 to 12 months, and results will be coming out soon. And then we also took a look at State Route 365. Where is that? That is right where 985 ends. And it is also where there's a new Northeast Inland Port will be opening soon. This is a strategic location that was chosen by the Port of Savannah as a way to move cargo inland on rail and keep trucks off of a couple hundred miles worth of roadways by moving those containers on rail instead. So at the inland port is where there's an exchange of cargo containers that come from the Port of Savannah. They will move onto a truck at this inland port or intermodal facility. So we knew that there was going to be some growth happening there, but in reality, that location was chosen strategically because there already is a lot of manufacturing and distribution that is occurring in this area. So it's just another piece of the puzzle that's solving the freight volumes that are increasing there. So we are looking at adjacent roadways as well as what's going on around the port, and analyzing existing and future conditions from 985 up northeast to Belton Bridge, and we're going to develop and evaluate transportation improvement options. And then one last study to tell you about that we've had underway for a little bit is in the Brazelton-Houston area. That is on I-85. Just outside of the, it's just outside of the Gwinnett Barrow County line into Jackson County. So if you see in the purple is the area. It's a pretty large area, and it crosses county boundaries, as most transportation trips in Georgia cross county boundaries. Trucks and cars are moving from origin to destination regardless of what border of a county or city it might be crossing. So that is a role that GDOT can uniquely play to look at the true travel demand regardless of what jurisdiction it's in. So we're looking at regional connectivity, the demand for north and south travel. Through trips is a significant challenge in the area, but there's also been an incredible amount of manufacturing and distribution growth that is happening in particularly Jackson County. And so there's a great deal of interest in ensuring the local communities get to continue to have safe access to their businesses and neighborhoods as the industrial base grows in that area. So that is it for me. If you for what I have for formal presentation, but happy to answer any questions. Refer back to any slides if you'd like. This QR code and that link will take you to the Georgia Freight Planning Analysis. That is where you find about a 25-page report reflecting that statewide analysis of key industries and congestion costs. Can
Thank
be found
you,
at that link.
Director Miller.
Thank you.
Some of you may be wondering why we keep talking about this. Chairman Beach, when he was leading the charge on transportation, a study committee, I think it was 4 years ago, on this topic. And there's really two reasons we're looking at this. One, if we look at those 2050 numbers, it's not a Georgia that any of us would want to live in, right? Where we're seeing 2 hours to get 50 miles outside the Port of Savannah. We're going to see gridlock traffic in Atlanta and around the state. But you overlay that with our current situation. I believe, Director, you had what's not in here. I read a report that came out from your office last week. I believe that, and give me the timeline on this, but y'all put a rough number of $90 billion, essentially a $90 billion solve on this problem. Is that with that same 2050 kind of time horizon?
That's correct, yes.
And that's additional funding above and beyond the current plan, is that correct?
Most of it would be additional. That's just the total investment over a 25-year period.
Okay.
Would be $90 billion.
So-
And that $90 billion worth of improvements would improve freight, but it would also improve people flow as well.
Correct.
That we don't have just trucks on any of our roadways
Correct.
in Georgia.
That's right. So to put that $90 billion in perspective, we will see about 2.3 billion in the budget this year. The feds will give us about 1.8. So we're currently spending about $4 billion a year with our existing needs. And all those existing needs fund all the other projects that are in all of our districts that may or may not have anything to do with these identified freight corridors. I'm in active conversations with Chairman Jaspers in the House. I think we probably have a generational opportunity to allocate existing revenue sources from our surplus to some of these transportation projects. Personally, I would love to see us do that without having to raise new revenue, without having to do line item tax increases as has been done in the past. We think we've got about 10 years left, at least, in the gas tax. The gas tax has been relatively resilient. That $2.2 billion number has been pretty consistent. But eventually, we know that will change. And so we have things out there that exist, such as the marketplace facilitator tax, that will increase over time as the motor fuel tax decreases. So I think those are all things we need to be actively thinking about. This exercise and talking about this is not just so we can look at maps and say, hey, we're going to have congestion problems in 30 years, and let's just kind of realize that, maybe try to build 1 or 2 more roads. I think that with the surpluses that we've seen states to the north, south, and east of us, and the west for that matter, do something similar to what Governor Kemp did last week. Make multi-billion-dollar investments of either surplus money or ARPA money or both. And as you saw in the governor's budget, he put forth about $1.5 billion in the baby budget for fiscal year 24. 600 or so of that will go to freight. 600 or so of that will go to the existing, called the GDOT program, which I think is important to note. A great percentage of that will merely backfill projects that we've had to spend money on with the economic development success in the state. So when we go win a Kia or a Hyundai or a Rivian, we're spending tens of millions of dollars around that area to build up infrastructure. And what that means for us in our districts, if that doesn't happen to be in our district, is without an injection of capital, other projects are getting pushed down the list. So I want to thank the governor and his team for essentially allowing the plan that we have, the TIP, to stay on track. And then lastly, there's $200 million that you'll see in there for the LMIG grants, which are done by Formula, which are something that all of if you have not called your local county commissioners or city managers, let them know about that yet. That is something that essentially doubles that spend for the local maintenance improvement grants that we have. So I just want to kind of cast that net over this conversation as to why we're having that. I know a couple members need to leave in a few minutes, and one of those is going to be Leader Gooch. So I'm going to let you ask the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Janine, thanks for being here. It's always good to get an update from you. During Thanksgiving, I drove my family out to Arkansas, and as we've talked so many times about trucks and truck stops and overnight parking, I realized when we drove through Arkansas, there were truck parking lots spread throughout Interstate 40. I wonder why Arkansas has done that and we haven't. Where's the money coming from, and how are they doing that on Interstate 40?
Good question. I haven't been along that corridor, but I will definitely research it. Thank you for flagging that.
I think it would be good to look into that. Love to see that in Georgia.
Indeed. We are embarking on a very special deep dive study. We have business consultants and transportation consultants that are going to really unpack where is the private sector demand and what the state can do to support that. A couple things to note. Our rest areas as they exist today, by federal law, we cannot have any commercial activity on those rest areas.
Right.
So wherever we expand that would have the amenities that truck drivers need and want along their journey, we will have to do that in partnership with the private sector.
From what I saw, these parking lots were just vacant lots that were built off the interstate, no exit anywhere else. They were just pull-offs, maybe a 5-acre flat asphalt lot, 100 truck spots perhaps, no utilities, no water or anything. So they literally looked like they were built primarily for truckers to spend the night and get their hours in.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
That would be a stopgap measure, somewhere to at least just park. But we know that just like all of us, we need the human amenities to make our journey safe and comfortable.
Agree.
So we do have engineering and analysis underway to expand our rest area parking by about 400 spaces. We don't have the funding for all of that, but we do have engineering underway for that.
One last question, if I may. The pinch point at Henry County, what's the status on that? What can we expect to see in the next 2 to 4 years?
Analysis was done, and I believe it's on our website, that is the corridor between Macon and Atlanta, and it's showing that the Henry County is indeed a pinch point, and we are taking a deeper analysis right now of where we should expand that capacity. The truck-only, the commercial vehicle lanes that are planned are just covering about a little over half of that distance between Macon and 285, and those are northbound only.
Right.
But there's clearly, from what we've gathered so far, much more traffic congestion today and in the future than just northbound commercial vehicle lanes would accommodate. So we're taking a look at the best way to phase those investments over time where the traffic is the worst.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Chairman.
Hang on, Chairman Beach. Your mic is not pulling up. You might pulling Senator Mello's mic over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to kind of piggyback on your comments. We started studying freight logistics when Chairman Tanner was here about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think we've done enough studying. My question to you is, do we have a project list, and can we prioritize that? And have you and the Port Authority and GDOT and Economic Development, Pat Wilson, sat down and say, hey, we got a Hyundai plant coming here, Rivian here, we got to build infrastructure. Is there some joint meetings going on between all of you and some collaboration? I can tell you, if we don't start building roads in Savannah today, the trucks will not be able to leave the gate of the port in 10 years. They'll be so backed up. And so we've got to do it. I know Griff Lynch in his appropriations hearing talked a little bit about partnership with rail and trying to get more product on rail. And there's talk about, I know Norfolk Southern, I believe, has talked about doing something intermodal-wise down in Henry County. But we've got to figure this out. Or Savannah, to the chairman's point, you won't be able to go 50 miles in less than 2 hours. So we got to get it. We got to start building now. And I know we've studied a lot, but is there some project lists we can look at and prioritize and get shovels in the ground and start building?
Yes, let me first answer the question about collaboration, coordination amongst the agencies. Yes, we meet on a regular basis with Georgia Ports Authority and very frequently with Pat Wilson and his team at the Department of Economic Development to understand where not just the big plants are going in, but small manufacturing and distribution around the state. So we're regularly looking at that and trying to get ahead and stay ahead where we can. As you know, Chairman, it takes a long time to develop a project. Unfortunately, with the regulations that are required of us to follow, from environmental permitting to public involvement to engineering, safety design, all of it, right-of-way acquisition, it takes a very long time to develop projects. So in terms of the projects that are for freight in the freight program as recommended by the governor, Commissioner and I are working on that battery of projects that are going to be able to come into the program that might be in the out years that are going to benefit freight. That's a one-time solution, and we have had construction cost increases, so we know just the overall cost of doing business is more than it used to be. So we're working with the engineering team and the permitting and right-of-way teams to figure out how we can bring the best, most cost-effective projects forward with those funds. In terms of when it will be hard to get trucks out of the Port of Savannah, we're not sure. It's hard to exactly project that. We just know by 2050 it will look like this. This may show up earlier than 2050. We do have some of these Coastal Empire Study projects in the pipeline already, particularly as I was referring to, the intersections are going to be the quickest and easiest ones to get going. This has been looked at by our engineering project development team, both this one of intersections and these of corridors, and we're evaluating what do we already have available in the program, can bring off the shelf and get those started right away, and then which ones require PE and right-of-way and will take a little bit longer to develop. This is the most mature, though, of all of the freight projects. For the ones that we're going to want to build for truck parking, as I mentioned to Senator Gooch, but also to address these along all of these routes statewide, is a lot of additional work to get it from a concept and a model to a project list that is a concrete, ready to let to bid project list. That's going to take a good bit longer, but we're working on it.
Can I have one follow-up question? So let's say next year we have another huge surplus and the governor wants to give you $3 billion. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be able to get that money in the ground working on capital projects?
Whether the governor gives us more money by next year or not, we will know a lot more. We are underway right now to translate these roadway networks with this congestion cost into projects. That's going to happen whether there's more money available or not. That's our duty to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Beach. Senator Lucas.
Yes, I talked to the question president of the Ports Authority. What about inland port in the middle Georgia area, say Twiggs and Beale County, coming into Beale County? There's enough land out there to do it, and Norfolk Southern runs back and forth to the chalk mine. Mm-hmm. There, wouldn't that be an ideal place, not only to do a port, but also truck drivers be able to get their time in with a facility, plus you would have the railroad spur to put the trailers on?
In terms of the exact location of where inland ports go, we defer to the Port of Savannah, the Georgia Ports Authority, because they have the line of sight into their cargo owners' data and origin destinations in ways that we don't. So we defer to the Ports Authority on planning those. There is one in Cordele today.
It's not big enough.
Probably not big enough. There is one in Appalachian Regional Port in northwest Georgia. The inland port in Gainesville Hall County will be open soon. And then the Georgia Ports Authority is also planning one over west central Georgia near the Kia plant to support the cargo flows there. That is what I know is planned. Beyond that, I'd have to defer to the Ports Authority on where they believe their customers are best going to utilize the inland port and get the most use out of it.
Well, the reason I ask is it's going to take money. Mm-hmm. And we need to know I mean, when I drive back and forth every day to Atlanta. When I get to McDonald's, if that is not a truck wreck, the road is blocked. Or the tractor trailers got everything backed up going into Atlanta. And so the question becomes whether or not you can take some of it off. If you get to the Little Georgia area and you got Norfolk Southern, whether or not you will be able to do an inland port as well as drivers being able to log their hours once they get there, and also take some of the trucks off that road because they're going 75 or straight to Atlanta.
Well, as you can see here, I-75 shows up on every map for every industry north of Macon, and then both for food and agriculture and distribution retail. I-75 all the way to the Florida border is a key corridor. And there was a study done by the U.S. Department of Agriculture a few years back that indicated that I-75 through the whole state of Georgia is critical for all of the nation's food and agriculture. What an inland port does, though, it only would go to and from the port of Savannah. So we've got a lot of through traffic on I-75 that an inland port wouldn't even be able to address. But we will bring that back to the Port Authority. We'll let them know that there's an interest there, and we're going to be meeting with them further on what else we can do here.
I mean, you got to have it. If they got plenty of land, it's a rural area, plenty of land. And it's right there beside me, it was a metro area, and then you got Norfolk Southern is running to Wilkerson and Twiggs for the KO. So.
And when they do the inland ports, they partner, the Georgia Ports Authority partners with one of the rail carriers. So,
but we got a carrier.
Norfolk Southern, right.
They want to be hard, they don't want to be nice.
All right, guys, we have about 5 more minutes here with Ms. Miller, so I'm going to take 2 more questions. Senator Mello, your button was, did you still have a question?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Director Miller. I thank you for the graph that you provided us. I drive I-16 every day coming to session back and forth. And I appreciate the study that you all did. I've been talking about I-16 with no study because I've been driving it. Is there any opportunity to consider adding, i.e. an express lane where you could use a Peach Pass to get through some of the congestion a little faster, where the truck traffic may take up the right lane and then truck traffic then gets in the left lane and then you're stuck with the trucks? And I don't know if anybody's ever rode past them on I-16, but they shake your car as you ride by them. It makes me nervous. So any opportunity to do that in small sections to eat this elephant?
So that's a great question. I-16 is a focal point, not just for of the Coastal Empire Study, but for all of the freight plan. What is the best way to add capacity to I-16 is a corridor study is what we would like to do with the additional funding that hopefully is appropriated. Because there are many options that have been offered up. People have discussed truck-only lanes. People have discussed just an HOV lane for folks who have more than 2 or 3 people in a car to use that. People have discussed a transit lane. So there are many options in there. We do know that in Atlanta, say on I-75, that reversible corridor, we'd prefer not to do reversible. If we do a lane addition of any sort, we would want it to be in each direction because we know there's bidirectional flow. So that's something that's important. But wherever we do have our toll lanes in Metro Atlanta, we don't allow trucks in those lanes up here. So that if toll lanes become something that we might want to do in Savannah, only if it will provide the best option and the best use of the public's dollars, we would still have to determine would trucks use the lane or not. There's a lot left to understand in that.
And any opportunity to use the contraflow lanes that we have for evacuation to maybe supplement that while they exist. They sit dormant until we have a hurricane, which is usually from August to November. And other than that, they're not in use.
That's a great question, and that will be part of our analysis to make the best use of existing infrastructure. What's the most cost-effective way to improve capacity?
Thank you. Chairman Burns, is this you or is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. We've talked a lot about roads. We talked a lot about trucks. I want to talk about rail. We have to integrate our rail with our truck traffic. I have current traffic in my district that's 3 miles long and breaking communities apart.
Rail.
Rail.
Yeah.
Rail. Now, we have to have a combination of rail and truck in order to move freight to an inland port or to a final destination. Now, my question is, how do you integrate rail into your overall transportation freight strategy, and how can we ensure that rail will have the capacity to accept the offload from trucks?
Great question. Along with the truck parking analysis with the private sector that I mentioned before, we're also, that same consultant team, business consultants who understand private sector rail demand, and our transportation consultants are going to team up and do a deep dive, understanding where we have those blocked crossings or occupied crossings around the state, and what can we do about those.
We're going to be expanding rail capacity.
So what will come out of that, we're not sure. We do believe that a grade separation is the best way to keep those communities from being blocked. We also know that grade separations can cost anywhere from $10 million up to $50 million each and take a long time to develop, and partner with the railroads on making sure that that engineering works for both parties. So there may be the potential to do some rail sidings, is what it's called, like an offshoot where the train can park and get out of the community. That's going to be a really important part of the study because those are less expensive. But as you know, we have the gratuities clause in our Constitution, so we can't give state money to a private, give away to a private. It has to be a public-private partnership to make those happen. But those would be a more cost-effective way of doing it, where we can find 2 and 3 miles that doesn't have a public crossing. So it's complex.
Thank you for your attention.
All right, quickly, Chairman Ginn.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Miller, I appreciate your presentation. One of the things that I'm going to pick on my colleague from down in Savannah, and I look at, okay, we just heard you come up I-16 to 75, you get to Henry County, it stops. I'm going to implore you to keep pushing those secondary routes. If I was in Savannah, I want to go to Atlanta, I might take Highway 17 north to I-20, come in the I-20, use some of those underutilized routes. I guarantee you there's not 10 minutes difference between the time. Actually, it may be much faster using those routes, but you know, those are opportunities, and I want to see us try to continue to push those. I know Highway 17 was back in the day, the GRIP program said they was there. Moving those things forward, I appreciate what you do, and thanks for being here today.
Bridge has got to be carried the weight.
Thank you.
There ain't no bridges down there in South Georgia. Just ask that one about Savannah. They got a little bridge problem down there.
Thank you for the comment on the GRIP corridors. Those have been, I believe, key for attracting business to the state of Georgia with the 4-lane roads that is a grid network around the state. And many of these that are on this map here are GRIP corridors. And they provide an incredible high performance and good and important route throughout communities for industry to the port and to Metro Atlanta.
Thank you, Director Miller, for being here today. I think that probably the most encouraging news is that we have a project list coming out. It's something that's been very interesting to members of the committee as well as the appropriators. That was a question that was kind of whispered amongst everyone as we realized there's going to be $1.5 billion appropriated around the state, at least this year, and obviously we're hoping that continues as well. So thank you for coming today and presenting the study, and Godspeed to you. We have 3 bills that I think we can get through relatively quickly today. I'm going to call Josh Waller up first to talk about Senate Bill 353 that I'm actually carrying as a department bill. All 3 of our bills, this is a little bit of a caveat, but this is the department bill you're about to hear is essentially a redo of the department bill that we had last year. It was vetoed due to something that was added. And then the second and third bills that we'll hear are also bills that were recommitted to the committee. So the subject matter of all 3 of these bills is something that we have already discussed as a committee, but certainly you're more than welcome to ask any questions that you have. I just wanted to kind of let you know that's why we're seeing these 3 this quickly. And with that, Josh, welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for carrying the bill. I'll just run through it. Section 1 was a recommendation from Legislative Council, just updating the way that they notify you for board elections. Obviously, you're here usually, the elections are called during session, more effective to email you versus mail out to you. So Section 2 is a cleanup, changing request for proposals to proposal revisions. At that point in the process, the RFP has already taken place, so this was just a cleanup of terms. Section 3 is a cleanup from when you all adopted alternative contracting methods back in 2021. Clarifies when there's restrictions on when you can do construction manager, general contractor, procurement. This just cleans that up. And here was a point where there was an amendment that we've tightened up the language to say it can be waived once every 10 years. The original version had once. There was some confusion as to what does once mean. Does it mean one time ever, or one time in an instance? So that should hopefully make it absolutely clear that it's once every 10 years. Section 4 is just conforming it to changes in federal law in terms of the length of these modular sectional housing units. Section 5 was a provision that we'd worked with different parties on to improve, particularly in the metropolitan area where you have a crash on our interstates or limited access road where you have a fatality. Before the crash site can be resolved, you have to have someone on site to declare the individual or individuals deceased. Sometimes, just like any of us, if you've got a major crash, a coroner will have the same challenges accessing the site. So what this does is allows for the coroner, it makes it clear that the coroner in their discretion can designate someone else who's eligible on site to perform those duties for the coroner, so that hopefully allows for the body to be then moved, the crash site to be resolved, because the longer you have that delay, the more challenge you have of secondary crashes and other instances will come. So Section 6 is just a cleanup to belt and suspenders to say, look, if, you know, in the world where transportation data and different data that are out there, make it absolutely clear that the Open Records Act can't be used to get personal data about people and their movements on our roadway system. With that, and then obviously Section 7 is just the effective language. That concludes the section by section. Ready for any questions?
Chairman Ginn.
Thank you. I was curious. I've seen an inordinate amount of these. I think they call them flock cameras. I'm not sure what flock stands for, but
That's a company. That's a brand name.
Okay. All over the state, on state highways, rural parts of the state, urban parts of the state, others. The data on those, you're telling me that they're not subject to open records?
So the department does not operate any of those. This would only be data that the state has.
Who operates those, and who allowed them to be installed on right of way if the department doesn't operate them?
So those are done by a permanent local law enforcement.
And who's paying for them?
Local law enforcement.
And if they decide they want to,
or the local government, I would have to.
And if they want to sell that data, to say, well, hey, we saw, so and so's tag going by here at this point at this time of day, what's to prevent them from selling that data?
I would have to. I couldn't speak to that.
But it's you're allowing that on state highway right of ways.
We have a process whereby with local governments we do, and local law enforcement, but they have to.
But if they want to commercialize that, and they
Is any of that contemplated in this bill?
No, this isn't a thing.
Let's stick with the contents of this bill.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions? Senator McLaurin, was that your light? Copy. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, what's the will of the committee? We have a motion to pass from Chairman Avatarte, second from Chairman Beach. Any discussion?
Just one second. Just kidding.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Josh. Next up is Senate Resolution 158. Senator Anna Vitarte. Let you present from there.
Yep. Number 9. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quick. This passed unanimously last session. Basically just piggybacking off of Janine's presentation. This is a logistics corridor basically to study, examine, and bring logistics and supply chain jobs to West Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions? All right, we're going to start with Chairman Burns first. Did you have a question, Senator Lucas?
I said it's I-20.
Second.
I-20 is involved.
All right. No other questions. What's the pleasure of the committee? We have a motion to pass from Senator McLaurin, second from Chairman Ginn. All those in favor? Any discussion?
It doesn't mention I-16.
Go ahead.
The resolution doesn't mention I-16.
Is that a motion to amend?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a waive just for a point of discussion.
Appreciate that.
For the gentleman from the 31st.
Fantastic.
There is one of these on I-16. I'll take you there.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Senator Anavitarte. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, House Bill 524, with freshman Representative Ridley carrying what I believe is your first bill.
Yes, sir.
That was spectacularly overlooked on Sine Die, but you are here again.
I'm here again, and y'all had a little fun with it last year, but like you said, it passed out of this committee. House Bill 524 just says three-wheeled vehicles that are partially or fully enclosed. They don't have to wear a helmet. Currently, all three-wheeled vehicles in the state require a helmet, and I have photos just like last year, if you remember, showing what they look like, if anyone has any questions.
Can we see those photos? I recognize Chairman Lucas for a question. Or, sorry, Senator Lucas for a question.
I just want to know how fast it is.
They are legal on the roads, and some of them do go 60, 70 miles an hour.
Chairman Burns.
A similar question. These are licensed, insured,
Yes, sir.
and
They have a tag.
They have a
They're
tag,
registered.
and National Highway Transportation meets all safety.
Yes, sir. They meet all the safety requirements of any other vehicle in the same weight category.
Thank you.
Representative, when you ran for office, did you go door to door?
I did.
And when you went door to door and talked about your platform, was passing the bill for three-wheeled vehicles part of your platform?
That specifically wasn't, but reducing regulations and trying to help people have an easier time out there was part of it.
Fantastic. Any other questions from the committee? Chairman Ginn.
I'm curious, the tag that goes on this is a motorcycle tag or an automobile tag?
Automobile tag.
And the three-wheeler open style vehicles I see on the road, are those
like the slingshots?
So, like slingshots type vehicle? I don't want to name a name, but are they automobiles or are they motorcycles?
So this is for ones that are have a frame and are enclosed, so like your slingshots. They don't have a roof. Those are motorcycles, and those would still require a helmet.
Okay. Thank you.
I am curious about line 37 where it says to partially or fully enclose the operator. What's the scenario in which it would be partially enclosed?
Some of them, they're like Jeeps. The doors come off. So it's not fully enclosed when the doors are off.
Would a slingshot operator, though, be able to argue that they are partially enclosed? This is actually a serious question. The body of their body is partially enclosed, whereas everything above their body is open.
Well, the argument was partially enclosed, and like with the frame, there's no frame on top of them. So like like you said, line 37, a frame to partially or fully enclose. When it's not above you, I think it'd be a hard argument to say you're partially enclosed because you're really you're not enclosed at all at that point.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mallow, I'll come to you next, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. Since we have a little small manufacturing plant coming down I-16, will these vehicles be manufactured or created somewhere along I-16? Since they can ride on I-16, will we be able to make them, or how would that work?
Yes, sir. There is a company that sells them out of Savannah already.
But what about making them? Where they're made at?
I'm not exactly sure where they make them, but I know they sell them out of Savannah, and they're very popular in the Savannah area.
Okay.
Chairman Ginn.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if my question is for the freshman representative or for our experienced counsel in the room, but I think it could be argued in the courts that, okay, those slingshots or whatever have a frame that partially encloses you. And in this case, I think if we were going to clarify this, we might want to say, that the frame members go all the way above or around the occupant, because I could see, on those slingshots, I can see those being partially enclosed. I mean, you'd have a frame on that lower portion. What's the difference? I'm not the lawyer in the room, but some of them do, and I understand when you have a roof. But if you can take the doors off, and it doesn't say anything about okay, the frame has to be above the occupant as well. And that's where, for me, I'm just kind of curious, okay, from a legal standpoint, I think what we're doing is we're saying that now a slingshot could meet this definition.
Do you want to address that, Representative?
The argument I'm going to make there is we do allow cars on the road today that don't have roofs. Convertibles or top go down. So in that example, a slingshot and a convertible would be the same thing.
Senator McLaurin.
Mr. Chairman, to Senator Ginn's point, maybe we could drop a little note here for the judiciary and have a legislative history moment. So with a pointed question, is it the author's intention whatsoever that slingshots would be covered by this bill?
No, it's not.
Well, great. Now they know. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from the committee? What's the pleasure of the committee? We've got a move to pass from Senator Lucas, second from Senator Mallow. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? This motion carries 6-2. Thank you, Representative. Thank you, members of the committee, for your time today. That completes our business, and we're adjourned.